joining me to preview the caucus goals for the House DFL is House Majority Leader Ryan Winkler. Thanks for taking the time today.
Sure, happy to be here.
So let's start with bonding. This will be a bonding year. I've read that the House DFL position is to have the largest responsible bonding package without losing the state's AAA rating. So most likely that number will be tempered by the Senate Republicans, who have been talking about $1 billion. But what's essential in bonding and how high might it go?
We have infrastructure needs throughout Minnesota, and the needs are getting worse as time goes on, as we have been limiting the amount of capital investment that we're doing. So we have clean water infrastructure in greater Minnesota communities that is falling apart and is something that those local communities can't pay for on their own. They need state support. We have higher education facilities at Minnesota State and the University of Minnesota all over that require upgrades and require maintenance, and we're letting those buildings fall apart. We have transportation needs at the local level, roads and bridges that require state assistance to be able to fund. And we have all sorts of community-based economic development and community building projects that are really important for local regions to be successful. So we have significant needs around the state on a lot of important issues. And we need a robust bonding bill in order to create local jobs, in order to fund those projects at the state and local level that are essential for our economic growth now and for years to come.
And as high as we can responsibly go will be your number?
Well, we know that we can go significantly above the $1 billion mark that we've seen in the past, and we also know that as long as we are held to that artificially determined number, the needs of infrastructure are getting greater, and our ability to pay is falling behind because construction costs are rising so quickly. So we need to get a handle on our infrastructure needs around the state, and sitting at $1 billion year after year just isn't doing the job.
You recently completed a statewide tour of town hall meetings where you talked with Minnesotans about the legalization of recreational marijuana for adult use. It has become a priority for your caucus. Why is that?
The biggest reason is that the current cannabis laws that we have are failing. We have a criminal justice approach to cannabis where we are arresting people, prosecuting them, throwing them in jail, and doing so in a way that is very disproportionate based on race. So we are locking up people of color in order to try to regulate a marketplace for cannabis, and it's failing in every respect and creating a lot of harm. Veterans who have PTSD or long-term pain can't afford our current medical program. There's no alternative for them, despite the fact that cannabis would help significantly in getting them off of opioids, which are far more dangerous. And we have a number of reasons why people should be able to access cannabis for personal use if they are adults and can make their own decisions. So there's a personal freedom, there's a health component, there's a veterans component, and there's a racial justice component to why we need to change the way we're doing this.
Another issue that's been percolating for some time in the legislature is a bill to address access to insulin and making it affordable or free even in emergency situations. It seems that negotiations with the Senate have reached an impasse, but also related to the cost of insulin is the cost of prescription drugs, and that is something that your caucus mentioned is an important addressing that high cost. So what will you do to tackle the high cost of prescription drugs?
Well, we have a number of things that we're working on. The insulin issue is really a highlight for us because it demonstrates exactly what is wrong with our prescription drug system. We have insulin, which has been basically the same for decades. Companies have jacked up the prices 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times what it used to be, even though they haven't invested anything new in it. And people depend on it on a daily basis for their lives. We've had 2 Minnesotans in the last year who've lost their lives because they were rationing insulin. And the fact of the matter is that we have an industry in the pharmaceutical industry that has the arrogance to think that they don't have to come to the table and be part of the solution. They believe that they are not subject to the ordinary rules of the road that every other industry is part of. They've got so many lobbyists, they spend so much money, they think that they are untouchable. And what this insulin debate is about, in part, is making sure that that industry comes to the table and is part of the solution and puts some money on the line to do that. It's an important principle, and it's vital for people who have diabetes, including my own son. And so that's kind of a titanic struggle against an industry that has had a free reign for too long on their own ability to raise prices and deprive people of things that are vital to their health. We think that they should come to the table. We think that they can. We've been introducing legislation related to price transparency and pharmaceutical benefit managers because we think that an open, clear, sunlit marketplace is much better functioning than one where rebates and incentives are moving around and nobody knows what's happening. So there's so much that needs to happen to make pharmaceuticals available and affordable to people, but the insulin fight is in part about whether we can bring an industry to the table and force them to deal with us.
The last economic forecast showed the state had a surplus of over $1 billion and full rainy day funds. Assuming the next forecast, which will be at the end of this month, confirms that surplus, what would your caucus like to see done with those additional dollars?
Well, it's important to remember that the so-called surplus is really a projection based on economic growth, and the extra money that we have is really the difference between a 1.6% growth for a year and 1.5%. So we're dealing with very tiny changes in estimates that make it appear like we will have future money. If we end up having money available, obviously we should be careful about long-term commitments, either tax cuts or spending. But there are certain places we can put that money where investing it now will make a big difference. One of those areas is in early childhood education, where we can get kids right now access to high-quality early learning and can make the child care crisis a little bit less than it is around the state by putting some money in towards programs we already have but have been underfunded. So that's one place we can put one-time money that can make a difference now. Another is in our capital investment bill area. There are a number of projects where cash can help get projects completed or get done more quickly or started more quickly. So that's another place we can look at one-time money. But the bottom line is, over time, Minnesota does not have extra money coming in. We have needs in health and human services and in education that are significantly higher than what we're currently allocating. And so we have to be very careful and honest about the choices we face.
Minnesota's achievement gap continues to plague policyholders. What policy proposals will you have to continue to address that disparity?
Yeah, the House DFL is bringing forward a $500 million one-time proposal to put $190 million into early childhood scholarships, which has had a long history of bipartisan support for kids 0 to 3. That is the best place to invest money at almost any budget area on any topic, is the youngest kids and getting them a great start in life. We will put another $190 million towards the Child Care Assistance Program, which helps low-income families get access to child care so that they can work and continue to build and grow out of poverty. And then we will provide grants and loans to child care providers around the state, especially in greater Minnesota, to help make sure that child care is actually available for people. Now, that's one part of the achievement gap, is investing early. We also have to reform our education system in general to make it reflect the students who are coming through today, and whether that's through having more teachers of color, whether it's more cultural competency in the school system so that people understand the different backgrounds kids are coming from. We have so many more kids coming in with emotional and psychological challenges, and our schools aren't set up for that. So there's a whole range of things that we need to do to address the achievement gap. And I think that this session we can make some progress.
I know your caucus has also talked about gun violence prevention, and there will be more on that, I'm sure. For now, we have to end, so I want to thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.